Welcome back to N.E.R.D.S. I'm your host, Lucas, and with me is my other host,
Zackary.
And today, Zackary will be needlessly, endlessly ranting dumb shit about...
building a large city/capital within mostly fantasy.
This is going to be fun.
Yes,
I'm excited for this topic. But before we get into that, of course, how's our day going? How's our week been going?
I'd say, how's our week been? I shall start, because you've asked me.
For sure.
For the most part, pretty good. It started off really strong, ended really poorly.
Mm-hmm.
This week was our first week back into both Cyberpunk and Dragon Realms.
So fun.
So, first episode of Cyberpunk was incredibly scary, but fun.
Had a lot of fun.
Had a lot of fun with that. We finished a warehouse encounter that we ended off 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then in Dragon Realms...
Not bad.
Yeah, you fucked up.
I fucked up by having a terminal illness.
Terminal?
That is some kind of illness.
I hope it's not terminal.
It can be.
It could be, yes. But yeah, Dragon Realms was fun. We got to the main capital, the dwarven city of N.E.R.D.S. I leveled you guys up to level 5. You guys just kind of spent the whole episode getting to explore a little bit of the capital, see some things, set up some things, and we ended with you guys standing outside the Iron Talon, which is like the Dragon Scale guilds.
Yeah,
and
I'm so excited. You
guys are gonna find some contracts, see some quests, do some fun things. So it was a very fun week, very stressful week, because we're gonna talk about what it takes and the parameters one should build with themselves when building a large scale city, if not a capital of a world.
And as somebody, we're both making big cities, our own central ways of doing it. So we both have experience with making these types of things. So it's gonna be interesting. It is gonna be interesting to talk about because I might learn some stuff that I've never thought of doing for major cities.
And I fucked myself with Dragon Realms in the sense that there are 13 capitals within this area.
Yep.
Some capitals we've explored are not super big, like Gordagai. Decently small, not much to it. But N.E.R.D.S is the furthest west capital.
Yep.
And it's the capital where my made-up currency / magic ore Thrawn, it's where it's mined. There's only 2 other locations, but this is the biggest area and where it was first discovered. So it's a huge city. But other than that, week started off okay. I've talked to you about it, so I won't go super into detail, but the end of my week has ended with urgent care visit, a ER visit, not for me, but for my boyfriend. And he's still sick. So it's been a very stressful 2 days. I've called off work the last 2 days. Hoping it gets better. He's sleeping right now. But I'm excited for the upcoming week.
For sure.
Before we should discuss how we're doing N.E.R.D.S now. So that way it makes sense.
Yes. So we are doing N.E.R.D.S now with a bi-weekly schedule. Not for you guys, though, who are listeners, our 0 listeners.
Woo!
We are recording 2 episodes bi-weekly and having those just kind of go throughout because we need some extra time to just be able to do things within our week as well as just have some days to relax. I know work has kind of scheduled me weird for the past few days. So I surprisingly didn't have to work today.
Hey!
They tried. But yeah, it's been a little weird schedule-wise, but this is kind of how we're doing it now, which is why I think I'm going to hold off my week for the next episode.
Oh! Yeah, because when we record the next 2 episodes, we'll have essentially 2 weeks to talk about. So we can talk about the first week, and then we can talk about the second week. But yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. It's only been a week since we've talked. So.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, my week's been Mostly it's been pretty good. It's just been a lot of planning, which I'm excited to talk about in this episode. I've got three examples I want to discuss, and then we'll talk about our own planning and world building.
For sure. Also, I'm realizing the episodes might be a little shorter just because we're splitting up our weekly obsessions, so we're not doing multiple crazy...
So it seems like my episode... I'll just skip my weekly obsession for your episode. That way it's just as long. But yeah, that's kind of it. I guess we'll hold off your week for next episode.
For sure.
And once we finish those two, we'll get back to the normal schedule, which is both of our weeks, both of our obsessions. But,
for sure. So then we're going on to my weekly obsession then? And then doing my week and then your weekly obsession for next episode?
Might as well.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, might as well. Keep it split.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get this every 2 weeks, or they'll get this every week, so.
Yeah.
What's your weekly obsession?
My weekly obsession is, of course, it's video game related because I am a nerd.
Lucky.
I have re-downloaded one of my favorite games that we have talked about before, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Ooh.
I re-downloaded it. I got it back on my PS4, and have been enjoying the hell out of it. And it all kind of started because throughout the week, a random Arthur Morgan video came up, and I was like, you know what? I'll listen to this. Sure, it's been a while since I've thought about Arthur Morgan. And then just kind of led into that spiral of just oh, I used to really love this. Oh, I used to really love this. I really miss it now, and now I have to get back into it. So I'm playing it again, having a blast. This will be my 2.5 playthrough because I've done another half playthrough of it before. But yeah. Love that game so much. I love that world. I love its environment, and we'll actually talk about it more in my episode because it's part of the topic that I have. Yeah, I love that game. It makes me cry. I love it. I'll talk about it more later, but it is I'll talk about why I like it so much, and then I'll go into the good qualities of it later. But I love it mostly because the storyline is some of the best storytelling I have ever seen. Not just a video game dude, but a show, a movie, or anything like that does. I've never been, and I've seen multiple reaction videos to different parts of the game. I've never seen so many people be no, this Arthur Morgan is a just great character.
Yeah.
Who has made multiple people cry. And it's because you play him for so long. Yeah. It is a long game. And there's just so much to do in it. It's a huge world. But consistently, Arthur is just Arthur. He is a badass outlaw who is doing everything he can for his gang. And just, and Vanderlingen is seen as his family. He was literally he was orphaned at 13, got picked up by Dutch, and was basically raised by him and Hosea, and has now in his 30s become the lead enforcer and if Hosea is the right hand, Arthur is the left hand of Dutch. And then you just see the spiral as the Vanderlingen gang continuously loses people and continuously has a lot of things go wrong for them, where Dutch completely spirals out of control, and Arthur is doing everything he can to have Dutch listen, especially when Hosea gets shot and dies, and is just trying to keep his family together. And then once he gets tuberculosis, which is incredibly deadly for that time period, basically has to be okay, I am a terrible, awful man who has killed a lot of people for just cash. Yeah. I got this disease because I beat a man for a little bit of money. I have to rethink how I'm doing this. And he doesn't stop doing bad things.
Yeah.
Because he is an outlaw and he is, he's still following Dutch, even though Dutch is going crazy. But he's now at this point like, no, the game's done.
Yeah.
Dutch is trying to hold it on by a thread, and everyone is dying, not liking Dutch right now. Mike is now on the head of shit, and he's like a dickbag. So Arthur's like, all right, John, Abigail, Jack, let's get you the fuck out of here. Let's make sure I can get everyone I can out of here before I die.
Yeah.
And it ends with him going to basically confronting Micah, who's been this like thorn on Arthur's side throughout the entire game, and who is a snake who ratted out to the Pinkertons, where Dutch is, and has gotten a lot of people killed, and has been worming his way through Dutch's ear since Hosea died and became the new right-hand man. So he goes to confront Micah while everyone else has escaped, and John is believed to be dead. John is the main character of the first game. This second game is a prequel to the first. John comes back after Dutch had left him for dead, saying that he left him. It comes to a Mexican standoff. Everyone is like holding their guns against each other, and fucking Micah just shoots Miss Grimshaw, who's been basically Arthur's mother.
Jesus.
And you know how Dutch responds? He pulls out his two guns and just goes and points it at both of them and just goes, now who is with me and who's betraying me? And just watching Miss Grimshaw die. After she had joined Arthur.
Yeah.
She was like, you put down your gun, Micah. And then then that's how it goes. John and Arthur move to one side while the rest of the gang move to the other. And you just hear Micah go, he's lying. The Pinkertons come, start shooting everyone up. And Arthur's like, John, you be ready. I'm getting you the hell out of here.
Yeah.
They start fighting through the Pinkertons. And the entire time, Arthur throughout the story has been getting sicker and sicker. It finally ends with them being chased by the gang and the Pinkertons, leading up to this like cliffside. Your horse, if you play the entire game with just one horse, gets shot. Arthur will run up and thank them because he will not leave them to die alone. If, of course, it's a level 4 bond. He will then get John up the cliffside, and there's this amazing moment where I hope they are not listening to any of this. There's this amazing moment where John and Arthur are up there, and you hear Arthur cough again, and there's some blood, and John's like, keep pushing, Arthur, we gotta go. And he's like, no, I pushed all I can. He's like, no, this can't, like, John's like, no, this can't be the end. And he's like, no, my time's done. Takes off his hat. He says, we're not both gonna make it. Goes up to John, puts his hat on John's head, and just goes, you go, it would mean a lot to me. And Arthur's not a man of emotion or few words. And as John's like, pleading with him to come with him, Arthur finally tells him to just go. Yeah. And John just goes, you're my brother. And Arthur just goes, not being the emotional man, just goes, I know. And just runs off and starts shooting at the Pinkertons. And John leaves to go be with his family. And so it ends with, you shoot off the rest of the Pinkertons that are there. Micah comes up from behind you and tackles you. He sees you there, and he holds you down and just starts punching you. And he's like, I'm a survivor. There's only living or dying.
Yeah.
You both roll off the cliffside and land. And then it's just a full-on fist fight against Micah. And it's brutal. Micah is beating the shit out of Arthur because he's sick. Yeah. And Arthur's holding his own, don't get me wrong. Yeah. He's a strong dude. But, he's getting the shit kicked out of him. And there it gets to a point where Micah's choking him. Arthur grabs the butt of a gun Micah slams Arthur's head against the stone wall, and at the same time, Arthur swings the gun. So they both land on the ground.
Yeah.
Gun goes flying. Music goes from this awesome battle to just a soft violin as you see Arthur completely beat to shit face. He turns and just starts crawling to the gun. And Mike is like, you ain't gonna make it to that gun, Black Lung. He's been calling him Black Lung, just to show some disrespect. And he's like, you've lost, we won this. And Arthur's like, on the contrary, given my best efforts to fuck it up, turns out I've actually won. And he finally reaches the gun that he's been crawling to, and Dutch's foot hits on the hand, which Dutch has raised this man. Yeah, he's fully raised him, taught him how to read, taught him his code of ethics, taught him everything that Arthur knows. Mm-hmm. And he just goes, "It's over, Arthur. It's over." And then you just hear the wheezing, "Oh, Dutch, he's a rat. You know it, and I know it." Mm-hmm. And you just see the complexity of because they did the entire game in mocap.
Mocap is beautiful.
Every expression, every movement, everything, the entire game is in mocap. Yeah. So you see the expression of Dutch just fully twist to, what am I doing? What have I done? As Mike is like, we've won, we got this, let's go, Dutch, mm-hmm. We don't need to be here. And Arthur then hits Dutch with this hard-ass line, which is, I gave you all I had. I did. And it wasn't enough. Oh. And then Dutch just reels back. You see him physically reel back from that. Sorry, I'm just explaining the entire ending.
You're like, we'll talk about it next episode.
Well, no, we'll talk about some other points next episode. But this is why I loved the game, and I need you to understand the quality of this story. Yeah. But Dutch finally kind of reels off, and and Micah goes again, "We've won, we've made it." And Arthur's like, "No, John made it. Yeah, he's the only one. But I tried in the end. I really did." Yeah. Dutch fully walks away from both Micah and Arthur. Oh. If you're low honor, Micah will come up and shoot Arthur, saying that you're no better than me. Mm-hmm. But if you're high honor, Micah will run off in a different direction, leaving you to just die from the disease. In high honor, Arthur crawls up to the ledge of the rock, leans back, and you get a sunrise as he takes his last breath. Oh. It's brutal. Oh my god. And then he plays John for the rest of the game.
Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, that game makes me cry. Mm-hmm. For very obvious reasons. Because you're so attached to these characters and you just want it to work out for them so much. But because of so many bad jobs, because of who they are, and because the times changing, and Micah. Yeah. A lot of them die, a lot of them run away, and the main character of the entire game dies because he beat a man. Yeah.
Damn. Mm-hmm. The ending of that feels very much like the ending of Last of Us 2. Mm-hmm. Which is just the Ellie and Abby fight. The first one is very much like that, where it's just Abby kicking the shit out of Ellie. And then it's the, fast forward, and they fight again. They're both just, so weak. And it's just, it's hard to watch a little bit. Mm-hmm. But God, is it good storytelling.
Yeah, I'm loving going back, because there's a lot of, moments that I've forgotten about, and I'm loving just reliving again. So... yeah, that's my weekly obsession.
Damn. I haven't been able to play any video games. Playing Dragon Realms has taken every ounce of just everything.
That's fair. I've only gotten 1 to maybe 3 hours every once in a while kind of thing. So
yeah, because I don't really know what I want my next game to be. I finished Dragon's Dogma. We talked about that last episode. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying Alien Isolation, but I think I have to be in the mood for horror survival.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of wanting another game. I might just... I don't know. I kind of want to replay Dragon's Dogma, but I'm also like...
That's fair. I am just waiting for that Hyper Light Breaker release.
Me with fucking Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
I don't think it's coming. I think it's soft canceled, honestly.
We'll see.
The reception has been real bad recently.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, it's a main voice character. You don't get to choose any of the bloodlines, and it looks more like Dishonored gameplay than it does like any of the like actual things. Yeah, from everything that I've seen so far, because they released a recent trailer, and I didn't know if you saw it yet.
With games that I'm really excited for, I try my best to not view anything.
Yeah.
Because, like, regardless, even if it is that way, I will still buy it. I will still probably enjoy it, because I love vampires so much.
No, that's fair. But I just know a lot of people are pissed.
Yeah, I thought it would be very weird if they... It also takes place in Seattle, which was kind of exciting, because we just played our vampire near Seattle.
Yep. God damn it, I've been wanting to play more Vampire. Because I missed like the first 2 sessions of that, and I'm like, I really wish I could have been there, because I could have like done more with Vampire.
Yeah. Because it looks beautiful. And honestly, I'll take a Dishonored style Vampire Masquerade game, because that sounds cool. It's really not the classic Bloodlines one, which is you choose your bloodline, you choose your disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. I mean, I would hate for it to be soft blocked or soft canceled. I'm just hoping that it is just slightly delayed.
I heard it was like soft canceled, but that was just me. Because
I thought you got to choose. Yeah, playable. Okay, so it's not. Playable clans are Bruja, Tremere, Banu Hakim, and Ventru.
Huh.
So they might have different main voicing for each one of those. But I swore you could choose, because I've seen trailers of the Tremere.
I thought it was just a stock, like, from the last trailer I saw, it was just a stock main character who's voiced. Kind of like, I guess if they're doing it, they might be doing it like Cyberpunk, where it's like, there's V, but you can kind of customize them.
Mm-hmm. Which is a smart way to do that. Like, if you're gonna, like, Cyberpunk does it in a smart way, which is, like, really no matter how, like, what you play, you're still playing the main character.
Mm-hmm. But it is like a...
Because it looks like... It looks like each clan has, like, a specific... Because I'm looking at the Tremere, and it says, image is render a female fire, like Phyir, one of the Tremere-styled outfits. All clans can earn all outfits.
I don't know.
So it looks like you could possibly... I would be super excited to play the Banu Hakim, because they're such a cool, like, clan.
I'm going to trust your judgment on it whenever it comes out. Because, again, just a lot of people are pissed right now, so it makes me weary to want to play the game.
You know what I think, actually, they're doing? And just now, because I've seen this, I think they have a stock male and a stock female. You can't customize them, but I think what they're letting you do is outfit customization. Because now, looking at the Banu Hakim, it says render the female fire, which I think is a play off of vampire. Pyre, the end of it. In one of the Banu Hakim styled outfits, all clans can earn. So I think they've got like a stock male and a stock female, but you can kind of just customize, what clan you want to be in, disciplines, the style, like the outfits.
That'd be cool if they're doing it like that.
I mean, Vampire Masquerade doesn't let you customize it either. Like, the old one, you chose your clan, and then you chose male or female.
Oh, yeah.
And they were super generic and a little bit kind of boring.
They were just... From what the discourse that I was seeing, was people were pissed because it was mostly... just looked like another AAA game. It didn't look like Vampire.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the vibe that I got from it, is it didn't really... like. It looked less like Vampire and looked more like Dead by Daylight. in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. And it's one of those things where that's why I don't quite look like reading discourse, because I mean, I'm there for the experience of the game. Mm-hmm. I'm not putting an expectation of I want this game to look like or to be like this. I'm kind of going out there of like, well, let's see what they do with it. Mm-hmm. Like, the first Vampire game had a very unique style. It also was 2005, so super old. But I don't, necessarily, I don't want another Bloodlines 1 just with higher graphics. That game had a lot of issues. The story was kind of okay.
For sure. No, I want a better quality Vampire game for sure. I just wanted the, customization of Bloodlines 1.
But Bloodlines 1 didn't have any customization.
It did for build, mostly.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if they... if they don't have a character sheet, that would be kind of something I'd be disappointed in. Mm-hmm. But also, I mean, not gonna lie, Bloodlines was a very old computer game, which was put points into something, and that's typing onto hack stuff, and it worked very well for the old system, which was just being released on a 2005 computer. Mm-hmm. Letting you hack things by actually typing and putting points into a very it was a very computer RPG game. Mm-hmm. There's a reason we don't really see many of those now. But I could see them doing, I don't know, because the character sheet could be fun. I also don't really know how that would work with PS4 or PS5, Xbox One, how they would deal with computer sheet, and if it actually deals with hacking and lock picking and all that.
Well, a lot of it I could see working fine. Mm-hmm. None of how the computer, the general computer game is nothing that a controller couldn't do other than the typing. So, because a lot of it is just, here's the action button, here's this, here's that, here's your melee button, here's the button for your powers. A lot of that stuff is controller can do that. Yeah. It's literally just the hacking part, which I don't think they're keeping for Bloodlines 2 at all.
But then why have the character sheet? It really doesn't add much except for just... Because, there's no really gameplay changing, other than, hack picking and lock picking, which is based on specific numbers of, mm-hmm. This is a lock pick 8.
Well, you can still have it be, RPG-ish with a character sheet, and, I would say they could do it similar to, how Fallout does it.
I could see that. That could be pretty fun.
Where it's, the hacking and the lock picking similar to that.
I don't see it as a character sheet. What I prophesize is the Fallout, where it's just, here are 6 stats that you get to level up. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking more Cyberpunk is how they're gonna do it. The blood type that you choose, whether you choose Tremere or something like mm-hmm. that, is going to have a skill tree for your abilities, mm-hmm. and then you have your main stats that you upgrade that give more to damage, your mm-hmm. stealth, and lockpick, and all that stuff. Which is kind of how it is in the TTRPG. Yeah, of disciplines have skill trees. You have to go certain paths to get certain things. For sure. I don't. The discourse is mostly, this isn't Bloodlines 1 thing, which is why I'm not this looks like a bad game. It's I'm just skeptical, and this is why it seems like it's soft canceled, is because there's a lot of discourse behind it, because it's not looking like traditional Bloodlines and what people wanted. Which is such a weird discourse, because it's 20 years later, are you literally just wanting the same game? Because at that point, why remake it? Why make a second one? Because there's really nothing in the first game that was that crazy, other than it being, a playable Vampire the Masquerade game, which is cool. But I've played that game a couple times, and there's a lot of things that a lot of clans didn't feel like they mattered too much unless you play, Malkavian or Nosferatu, which have obfuscate, invisibility. I've played Ventrue, I've played Brujah, and I've played the exact same way before, because in that great way, you can put a very high, like, you can build a very high persuasion, high seduction brouhaha, but it really doesn't, other than, like, disciplines, feel like there's much difference between them. But who knows?
It just kind of depends. I could see it going great. I don't think it's going to be a bad game, because the gameplay doesn't look bad at all. It just looks generic by our standards at this point. To me, the thing that I'm just disappointed that they don't have is more customization in the character aspect. Which I know Bloodlines 1 didn't have that, but it is like, I wanted more like, I get to play a Nosferatu. I wanted all the clans to play kind of thing, which can be hard.
I see that I'm in the opposite feeling. I'd rather have less clans if I know each clan is going to be done extraordinarily well. If I'm getting to play a Banu Hakim and I get to see the disciplines and get to play them, and they have different, like, the environment deals with a Banu Hakim differently than a Nosferatu or a Ventru. That's what I would rather have, compared to just, here are the 13 clans, you can play whatever. It's more of a generic thing. Because even, like, Bloodlines 1 does some of the disciplines very shittily.
Yeah.
Like, celerity just makes you attack faster and walk faster, which is not at all the celerity, like, the disciplines. And there's a lot of them that are just like, okay, what am I doing here?
For sure. I just really want... I am skeptical because I have gone on before about how I really don't like V. As, like, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
I don't like that aspect, and that's kind of what it's looking like for Vampire, where we're going to have it's a character you can customize and make your own, but they're also still this generic character that you have to play. It's like, that's still having your character needed too. Either give me a fully customizable character and have make my own decisions, like Skyrim or Vampire or whatever, or have a character that I am playing that I can get, like, abilities here and there.
Yeah,
that's fine.
For me, I haven't seen much of the gameplay. To me, it kind of feels like it's just like it plays like Dishonored, which is you choose male or female, and they have voicing and acting themselves, but the clan you choose doesn't quite. And I will say, they've done it smartly, where they've chosen 4 clans that don't really alter the body in any way, so you can have a female Banu Hakim be the same model type as the female blah blah blah. Because Gangrels, Nosferatu, those all change. And even other ones do too. That would be what I think of, and especially looking at it, kind of looks like, which is, if you play a male, they've got full voice acted, like lines, or you play a female, and then each, the clans give you outfits based on who they are. You can unlock other outfits. They made that statement of, like, you can unlock all clan outfits, so you can, later in the game, I'm assuming, be a Banu Hakim, but dress in that Ventru suit style if you want. I don't know, V... I don't like V because I don't like when it is customizable except the character itself. It's like, yeah, great, the style is customizable,
but the character,
but the voice and, like, what they do is not customized. I was like, just take it away from me. Like, if all I'm changing is cosmetics, I'd rather you just give me, like, an LE-based character, which is their own unique style, their own brand of something.
Which is, that's the thing with me in V as well, is, like, I can change them however I want, but it really doesn't matter because they are V.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, like, sure, it's my own version of V, but they are V.
Yeah.
This is not my own cyber character that I'm making.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm, like, that's why I'm skeptical of the Bloodlines 2 character at the moment, is because they're kind of doing something similar.
Kind of, but none of them look customizable. It doesn't look like you can edit the way your character looks.
That's fair, but I'm just skeptical.
Yeah.
Because anytime anytime it's like that, for a game like this, it's like, okay, am I going to... I'm also wondering if it's going to be a linear game, or if it's going to be more, like, open.
I would hope not. I mean, Bloodlines 1 was an incredibly linear game.
For sure. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, too. I'd rather it be a linear game, because I feel like V would have shined in a linear game.
Yeah.
Than he or she would have... Well, they would have been in a
open world. Vampire could be a very fun open world concept.
Mm-hmm.
It would be incredibly difficult to do, but I could see that being kind of fun, which is I would say maybe not fully open world, but like semi-open area worlds.
Well, that's what they did in Bloodlines 1. Was it had
kind of, but those areas were so small.
Well, yeah, because it's a 2005 game. But that's exactly what they did. Those were open areas that you could freely explore, do side quests and all that stuff, but you also had to do the main quest to really push the story forward. So, like...
I hesitate calling those open worlds because it literally is just
they're open
a line.
Zoned.
Yeah.
Open zoned.
Like, most of those districts you're on one street, and that's the most you're gonna get. It's like, hey, downtown is just like an S shape. Like, that's it. There's no other exploration. It's the same street. It's the same area.
But again, 2005 game.
But I could see that kind of being fun, which is a little bit more open world, and you get to explore a bit more and seeing maybe some other cool vampires.
If they're going to do it like Dishonored, I feel like that's honestly a pretty good way to do open/linear.
Though a Dishonored-style vampire game would be very interesting, because what happens when you deal with Ventrue who can dominate?
Mm-hmm.
How do you just... the Dishonored thing is the fun thing. You can go aggressive or you can go stealth. If they do a Dishonored style, I'd like to see how they go talking versus stealth. Because you're going to have clans that can just dominate or talk through... Theoretically, should be able to dominate or talk their way through things.
Yeah.
Especially when dealing with humans.
So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see.
I'm excited for it. I don't really have any expectations, which is why I don't look up things, because... I want to see what they do with it, not set an expectation of what I want and then be disappointed.
I was literally just looking up, hey, Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines release date, and then I saw a new gameplay trailer. I was like, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
And then saw all the comments were like, boo, like 0 out of 10. This looks terrible. Like this looks like Dishonored. This looks like blah 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 blah. This isn't Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines,
Because I'm not gonna lie, if I did that, I would have most likely hated Darksiders 3. Because I would have thought the same thing of like, this is not like the other two. Even 3 looks similar like the first two. It's a completely different style. Theoretically, I wouldn't have liked it. The story really isn't the same. But it's the fun part of being like, well, I'm excited to see what they do with it. They took an interesting spin on it. It was very fun. And I'm hoping that's kind of how it is with Bloodlines. If it's a Dishonored style game, honestly, I'd fuck with it. We don't get enough Dishonored style games. It's a very fun genre. And it's a very good genre. And so if it's that. I'm excited for it. Who knows? Like I said, I'm excited for it because it's a vampire. I think it's going to be a definite discussion when it releases this year and we get to talk about it. It's supposed to be released this year.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Who knows? Again, I heard that it was soft canceled. So I'm worried that it's not. But yeah. Which, speaking of which, Hyperlight Breaker should be coming out this summer.
Ooh.
Like that's a for sure thing. So, or at least the early access is coming out this summer. So once it comes out,
this was released last year. Saying Bloodlines 2. This was released June 7th of 2023. Released Vampire Masquerade Bloodlines 2. I'm just gonna start calling it Bloodlines 2. Is back from the dead with the offer of refunds and a fresh batch of screenshots. In 2021, Paradox admitted it almost canceled the project after ditching Hardsuit Labs, delaying the game indefinitely and canceling new pre-orders. Now, Paradox has announced it'll show more of Bloodlines 2 this September. In the meantime, it'll offer refunds to anyone who's pre-ordered it. This was last year. We acknowledge it's been a long time, and many of you have pre-ordered Bloodlines 2. as it develops, time spans over new alpha screenshots. The game looks fucking gorgeous, though.
Yeah. Again, I didn't think it looked bad at all.
Yeah.
I was just wondering like what the discourse was about. So
let me see if we can find a bit, because I'm getting a couple articles that are saying this, but I don't. Yeah, this one that's saying canceled is 2021. You might have read some old news. I don't know. Because I'm trying to find, like, a lot of them are 2021, which I think is a developing company split or bankrupt. So they were like, oh, it's canceled.
I'm also realizing I really like older games like Bloodlines.
They're
like,
cool.
I'm enjoying them.
There's a lot of things that I'm like, technically there's a lot of technicality issues that I struggle with. Even some of the story elements are like, okay, it's kind of weird. What am I doing here?
I'm just enjoying. I'm kind of enjoying the jankiness of it, and I'm enjoying like the aspect of, because we don't get games like that anymore, really.
We really don't get like CRPGs hardly ever that like put points into certain stats, and they really don't.
That's why Baldur's Gate was such a big blast, you know.
Yeah.
That's why Larian Studios has been doing like Divinity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I love those games. So,
I mean, even Dragon Age, which we've talked about extensively, like the old Dragon Ages were 100% computer RPGs, and we got Inquisition, which was absolutely not. It was just an RPG, an action RPG.
Yep.
So, who knows? Anyways, very long tangent. I don't even know how we got onto that.
I don't know. It's nerds.
It's nerds. Hey, my weekly obsession will go into what we are talking about today. Well, I've got two kind of weekly obsessions, like I always do. The first small one is I finished.
Wait, you're doing your weekly obsessions on my episode.
No,
that's what we said.
No,
that is exactly what we said.
We got two weekly obsessions. I can't not talk about my weekly obsession. It's why I'm talking about the subject.
All right, fine.
Because I have other weekly obsessions.
Okay, fine.
It's just this one for now. I've got two, both book related. I finished Twilight Breaking Dawn, so I've officially finished the Twilight series. Great book series, love them. So much better than the movies.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my little. I was into vampire for so long. I was like, oh, Twilight. But I've started rereading my favorite book series of all times, the Seven Realms series. Started with The Demon King. Still not finished with it yet. I would have been if I worked, because I only have like 7 more hours left on the audiobook. And I love that book series so much. There's so many. Oh, the writer just writes it in such a fun way, which is like setting up plot twists or like not foreshadowing. Some of it is foreshadowing, and some of it's just like good storytelling of like, oh, this character feels like they're important right now, but I don't know. And then down the line, you're like, oh my god. But it's our two main characters, Hans Alistair and Reza. Hans is a ex-street lord, and he is a tragic character that I love so deeply. He tells him like he's got 3 lives. His first life is the son and brother of a very, very poor household. They live on top of the stables. Mom works in the like any job she can find. Most of the time it's cleaning laundry, and the daughter is 7-year-old who kind of is just growing up being literally dirt poor, like eating that kind of cabbage porridge 24/7. So he's like, that's one of my lives, trying to feed my family. We don't have his father died as a soldier in a civil war down south. So he's like, there is no family, there's no male figure really, because we start the book with him being 16. His other life is Street Lord of the Raggers, who he's incredibly good at. You know, thieving, not really murdering. He definitely has murdered people before, but it's not like his big thing.
For sure.
You know, and the Raggers have this like cult, like this cultural thing of like they're super wealthy. There's diamonds in their like hideouts, and they'll steal girls, and the girls will never want to go back, and they'll take vows of like celibacy for him, or like they'll never touch anyone else because it's the street lord. But he stopped that last year. But because he made such a big name for himself, it's still chasing him, and so he still gets in a lot of shit with other street gangs, and even the guards. But he's like, I'm not in it, and no one believes him. In his other life, which is so tragic, because I've kind of felt this before, is adopted son of the Marsa Pines camp. This camp of like essentially like druids and like healers and trade and merchants, but he's not technically a part of it. He's not clan, and they don't really this is what I love. They don't really explain why he's been a part of that life, why the matriarch of the camp named Willow, why she took him in, why him and her son Dancer are like friends, but they just have been. And so you're like, in the beginning you're like, okay, why is he a part of this clan? He himself is like, I don't belong here, but they're kind of like my only family. They feed me at times, and the book starts in the clans, and we start with him hunting with Fire Dancer, his like best friend. This is a quick explanation of the lore. Is like, you've got wizards, which are high magic, and then you've got the clans, which is green magic. And essentially wizards can cast spells. They call them jinxes, but they require amulets to store power and like cast magic. Clans are green magic because they can heal. They create amulets and other magical weapons. But it's not really flashy. It's very subtle and very like slow-based things, but are incredibly powerful. I mean, Willow heals Hans's arm, which breaks, and it takes like a week to heal, compared to like however long a broken arm would take. So you've got like the fighting between, like, they're not really fighting, but you've got the two cultures of like high magic and green magic, and this world is set up, which is like 1,000 years after the breaking, which is when a wizard essentially took the wife of a queen and became the demon king, and it shattered the world, and it took the clans to rebuild it. Jesus. And the clans essentially went, we're going to restrict everything now. And the breaking happened, and so essentially the clans got to pretty much enforce a bunch of rules on the wizards and be like, we're going to make the amulets. No, you can never get, like, there will be no one else to make amulets except the clans. You have to be 16 to get one. You have to immediately go to school, and like just rules after rules, so that way it never happens again.
Yeah.
But we start in this clan, and like Hans explains it in a way that's like, he can't even be grateful for being there because his mom always shits on him for it. Like, he got a bunch of like very rare plants for Willow, and Willow gifted him clan-made boots. And it's like, this is like page 5 or 6, and his mom is like, why the fuck would you take the boots? Why wouldn't you ask for gold? Like, we're dying here. We don't have food. And so that's kind of his whole life, is like hopping between like, okay, I'm clan, kind of, but I've got like my best friend there, this other girl named what the fuck is her name? I can't remember her name. Is it Springing Bird?
I wouldn't know.
I think it's Springing Bird or something bird. And like Willow is incredibly close to him, but then he goes back because he's like, I can't stay here. I'm not technically clan, even though they'll let me stay here. It's I have responsibilities back in the capital. My mother, my daughter, or my sister. And while he goes back, it's like, okay, we're getting introduced. We know he's poor, and then he immediately gets robbed and beat up because of because of a different gang. And he's like, I'm not the gang lord anymore. And they're like, we don't give a shit. And it's like, oh my god. And so he, bounces between these three identities, and we get so many if you're a very attentive reader, you get very questions of like, why is he a part of the clans? Because the clans are like, they don't deal with outsiders. Like if you're a clan, you're a clan, and they deal sometimes with what they call as the high folks. But there's like no, like you don't see other people coming down and clan going up into the capital and like choosing to live there. Like it's very segregated because the clan made it that way. And so you're like, why is Hans here? Why is he allowed to do this? What's the purpose of this? And we get closer and closer to like not revealing things, but like setting things up. And the big plot twist. Oh, he's called Cuffs. That's his street gang name. Because he was born with metal cuffs on his wrists. Like they call them 3-inch silver like bracelets, like 2 cuffs, and he's never been able to take them off. And they've grown with him. So a lot of people are like, oh, they're clan made, but no one remembers where they came from. And his mom said that she bought them from a trader when he was born. She doesn't remember who the trader is. She doesn't know, like, she doesn't ever explain why she bought them. It's just, I bought them and now they're on you. You can't ever take them off, kind of thing. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? This book ends with the 3 greatest twists. In the beginning of the book, he steals a Jinx amulet. Wizards are not supposed to come into a certain area of this world because it's forbidden by the breaking. And we start the book out with 3 wizards setting fire to certain things, like to the land, in hopes of drawing the deer closer to the queen so she can hunt, kind of thing. Hans and Dancer, like, kind of shows himself. Hans is like, why is Dancer doing this? And he, like, Dancer sang a lot of, like, wizard lingo, and he's like, how the fuck does he know this? And Dancer's 16 also. And eventually it ends with Hans being like, all right, drop the Jinx piece. You're not supposed to have it anyways. You're not 16 yet. You know, you only get it when you're 16. He takes it, and so you're like, oh, and it's this coiled, like, serpent amulet with, like, ruby eyes and, like, a green gemstone, and it's like, ooh. And so, like, that's, like, the setting up the introduction. And then he just gets shit on for about a couple months, where, like, bad luck after bad luck, he gets robbed, and the next, like, week or so, that gang that robbed him starts showing up dead, like tortured and dead on the street, and everyone's like, oh, it's you've done it. And he's like, I don't know what's happening. I'm obviously not murdering people, but everyone thinks he's done it. So the guards beat him up. He gets saved by someone else. Then more structure. Like the first time, like 6 of these gang members show up dead. Then 3 more show up tortured and dead on the street. And then 2 more of his gang show up tortured. And so it's this thing of like, not only is this other gang happening, but I'm not killing my own members. And then we get closer to like the naming day, people's 16th birthday. His 2 friends, Bird is wanting to become a warrior, which isn't really much of a story issue, but he's just kind of like, I don't want to be left alone. And Dancer's refusing to tell Hans what he's going to take as a vocation. And Dancer starts to get like really sick, and Hans is like, what the fuck is happening? Like, he's like in the dark and just shit's happening. Push comes to shove, Dancer takes the vocation as a wizard, and we learn that he is half clan, half wizard, and he is showing innate spellcasting, because I think I've explained this to you, spellcasting in this world is like battery, essentially. Their body naturally stores up energy, and if you don't release it, it can explode, which is the Jinx pieces. They store magic like a battery. And that's why Dancer has been sick this entire time, because he's been a wizard, and he's like, I'm taking wizard vocation. The clan kind of erupts, but Willow's like, there's nothing else he can do. Like, he is a wizard. If he does not go for schooling, we have to kill him. Like, that is just how the clan ruling works. And I love Dancer because he makes his own amulets, because he's part clan. He knows how to make his own amulet. So that's kind of his thing, is he's a craftsman, but also a wizard. So Han's like, my best friend's a wizard, which we all hate wizards. And my other friend, which is a girl, which kind of has a crush on, is going off to the Demon Eye camp. Like, what the fuck is happening? And I'm still being chased because he gets in an encounter with these shadow figures who are looking for him because he stole the amulet. And you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then he learns the amulet is the actual amulet of the Demon King.
Holy shit.
That the family that killed him, the High Wizard family, kept it as a relic, and the son took it because he didn't have a Jinx piece, and he shouldn't have, and push comes to shove, Hans takes it from the son. So he's like, what the fuck? The High Wizard, which is the son's father, finds him, tortures and burns his family down to the ground, so he loses his mother and sister.
Jesus. Fucking Hans.
And
this poor boy. He's like 16.
Yeah. Oh, he's a little bit after 16. He has this horrible, sad part where he's like, oh, my naming day was a couple months ago. It went and bought, like, nothing ever happened. No one celebrated me. Like, it was just like another day. Push comes to more shove. Our poor boy learns that the cuffs are magical amulets that are storing his power, because guess what? He's a wizard too. Because he's the offspring of the Demon King.
Jesus.
And the clan knew. The clan's been watching that bloodline, and he started to show physical like signs of being a wizard, so the clans built the cuffs for him, which have been like sucking up his magic. And we get a little bit of that, like the shadow wizards find him, and they like try to cast a spell on him, but they like disappear. Or they like get ran off, and he's like, wow, my cuffs are really warm. Like, what the fuck is happening? And we learn that it's because they suck up magic, and that's what they've been doing. So the clan essentially is like, well, your mother and sister are dead. You have no reason to be here. We can no longer control you now because of it. So the elders are like, well, you've got two options. We kill you now, or we take the cuffs off and we give you an amulet and you go train to be a wizard under our control. And he's like, well, I'm not going to kill myself, so I guess I'll go train. And luckily it's that kind of thing of like, he gets to stay with Dancer, his best friend, and they both go to Odin's Ford. But that's book one, and it's like, there's so many little things that like set up things. Of like, why is his cuffs? Why is he part clan? And you learn why the clan has taken him so well, because they're watching him because he's an offspring of the Demon King. So the whole clan is like, not the whole clan, the elders of the clan are like, keep him close so we can watch him.
Yeah.
And the High Wizard, who is searching for the amulet because it should have never been taken, both by his son and then by this random street lord, winds up finding his family, burning them to the ground, and we start a whole feud with Hans. Oh, which I also forgot. His clan name is Hunts Alone.
Aww.
It's so sad.
Hans Hunts Alone.
Oh, it's so sad. We start the whole feud with Hans, and the wizard he took the amulet from is named Michael Bayar. And the Bayar family destroyed the Demon King, took the amulet. And all three of them hit their naming day. They all three go to Odin's Ford. So it's this like Dancer, Hans, and then Michael. And that's just half the book. Because the other half of the book follows Reza, the princess heir, and her whole shit. Which is just like another like, what's happening? Oh, we're setting some things up. Her mother is like, Reza's actually half clan. Mother is queen. They call the Grey Wolf line. A line of queens who have essentially been unbroken since the breaking. The lady that was taken was a Grey Wolf queen. They're kind of incredibly powerful. They like get visions essentially when the line is threatened. And our main girl Reza she's about to turn 16. She's about to have her naming day, and she starts to get visions of the Grey Wolf. And she like tells her grandmother, who is clan, and she's like, shouldn't be happening because it should be only for the queen, but if you're seeing it, it means either the queen has been broken from the line or the line has disregarded her and has moved on to the next queen, which would be you. And Ray's just like, what the fuck is happening? And she has a love interest with Michael Bayar, a wizard, which is forbidden. Queens are not allowed to marry the wizards anymore because the Wizard King the breaking, the whole shit. And she's like, oh, but he's forbidden, and I kind of like him.
Romeo and Juliet.
And we hit her big story moments are like, Michael gifts her a naming day present, which is a serpent necklace, and she wears it on his naming day. And the book sets it up where we don't know if he knows or not, but essentially it's a seduction amulet. So he wears a ring, and it's supposed to like multiply the attraction between both parties. And luckily, her dad, which is clanborn, finds them before anything can really happen and is like, what the fuck? This is a seduction amulet. They are forbidden since the breaking. How did you get this? He's wearing the exact same ring. Mm-hmm. We kind of figure out that he didn't really know, and later in the book we figure out that it's his family that's trying to do it for certain reasons. And so Raisa's in this like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm in a trap. I can't see what is causing the trap though. And you know, because she's part clan, she's like, what am I gonna do, father and grandmother? Because they're both clan. And they're both like, keep an eye out. If you cannot see what's coming, then we can't fight it. Mm-hmm. But obviously your mother is getting closer with the High Wizard, Michael's father. They're getting a little lovey-lovey. So it's just like, your mother's already fallen, essentially. Mm-hmm. We have to hope for the next queen, which is you. We have to hope you're going to be better. Not hope, but we're going to have to like set it up that you're going to be better. Her big thing is, at some point, I can't remember when, I think I'm about to get to it, the big plot twist is that her mother, the queen, the High Wizard, have been setting up a secret wedding between the Princess Heir and Michael Bayard. And they were originally going to do it on his naming day with a seduction amulet, but eventually it comes back and he gives her the seduction amulet again, and very smartly the clan, her grandmother gave her like a woven ring, which is said to be from the original queen 1,000 years ago. And it's like Hans's cuff. They kind of suck up magic. Very subtle thing, but a very powerful thing. And so she wears the amulet, but still has the ring on, so she pretends to be seduced, like charmed. They essentially spring it on her, like, well, we're marrying you to him. Mm-hmm. I know this is forbidden, but once you become queen, you can kind of just essentially break the naming. And she's like, you know, pretending to be seduced. She's like, oh, I want to, but I thought we were going to have a big wedding, and I've always wanted a big wedding. Like, this is just too much. And she eventually is able to get away, and her story starts with her running away. She had a secret door in her room, which she's used a couple times in the book. She flees, finds her like best friend / kind of love interest, the captain of the Queen's Guard. Or not captain, that's his father. He's like sergeant of the Queen Guard. Mm-hmm. Essentially is like, I'm running away. They plan to marry me on the wizard. That would destroy like this whole culture that we have. It's forbidden for reasons. And he's like, and he, I think, talks to his father. Mm-hmm. And eventually talks to her father, and he's like, I think it's okay. Like, we kind of have to right now, because there's no other way of fixing this. Mm-hmm. So they flee, and guess what? Guess where they go? To Odenford. Because he's about to return, because he's a soldier, he's studying.
Question, does Hans and this princess later on end up as a couple?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very... You know, I never really noticed that in the... Like, when I first read it, when I was, like, 12 and all that. It is a very, very slow burn over 4 books. Mm-hmm. Because Princess Reza essentially, like, starts to learn to become a warrior. And that's kind of her big thing, is like, I hate being a queen who doesn't know the world. Like, who doesn't know what we're doing. Like, doesn't know anything. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of good for her. She goes under the alias Rebecca Morley, joins her love interests, the sergeant of the Queen's Guard, joins his little, like, cadet group, and just mm-hmm. pretends to be a civilian. We learn, and kind of very smartly, the writer ends that love interest in a very smart way, which is her like best friend Amand. there's a reason why his family has been for 1,000 years the protector of the queens, because they do blood magic to connect them. So before he leaves, his father literally by blood connects him to Reza, so that way he can always tell whether she's in danger. If she dies, he would know. Can always kind of like not read her mood, but get an inclination of like when things are wrong. And then that family has done it for every queen since 1,000 years. But what it causes is you don't feel any romantic attraction between them. Like at times she tries to be like, oh, I love you, blah, blah, and he like almost throws up at times because he's like, and eventually he tells her, which you're not supposed to do, but he's like, if you keep doing this, I will, like, I'm getting sick. There can never be this because I am your protector. And he marries a sweet girl. And then Hans eventually, oh my god, it's such a
tragic love story.
It's not really, because they eventually find each other, I think, in like book 3. Like I said, it's a really late game. Book 2 is all about college. Yeah, the Odin's Sword, because it's tranquil, or it's named as like neutral ground, tranquility. They don't give a shit where you come from. They don't give a shit about previous fights. So Michael Bayard tries to be like, he stole our amulet, arrest him, and the professors are like, we don't care, move along. Like, we don't deal with anything from your other countries, because it's like the center of the whole the whole continent. They're like, we don't care if you're two brothers feuding in a civil war. If you come here and you're a student here, that's all gone. So him and Michael have to kind of like not be buddy, but there's that like,
you're students. We
can't kill each other, but we're students. And then we get the fun plot point of the demon amulet contains the Demon King. Like when we learned his story, it's a very sad one, and written by the winners of history, by the Bayard family. He was not a bad person. He loved the queen. They tried to get married. The Bayard family were going to try to do that first, so they just killed him. And in a last-ditch attempt, the Demon King transferred his soul to his amulet. So when Hans starts to use it, he starts to see this mysterious figure in the amulet. And when school comes around, eventually he's able to put his consciousness in the amulet and study under this figure. And we learn, I think towards the end of the book, that that's actually the Demon King. Because I think he goes under the name like Crow.
And then Hans becomes the new Demon King.
Kind of, yeah. Like I said, I don't really remember much of book 3 and book 4, but I know book 4 has a big scene where it's Hans and Reza, because they do actually fall in love. Like on a tower, essentially fighting to the last death until they're like you have to stop this. And I don't really remember how it concludes. But I just love this book series so much. And I will transition this to what we're talking about.
Warrior Princess, and then Urchin Scholar.
Yeah. Urchin wizard who really doesn't know how to be a wizard and is kind of bad at it, has never went to school. Kind of. They've like a church school that he goes to, and he knows how to read, he knows how to do maths. But like going to Odin's Ford, it's like a whole college. It's like going to Harvard. Because culturally, wizards are only nobility. Like that's just how it's been. That's the high magic and then the green magic. So wizards are 99.99% always nobility, always taught up like nobility. Etiquette, manners, education.
So he's not good at that.
You have Hans and Dancer, both essentially clan made / born, going to a school that's like, hey, what the fuck? And Dancer is such a great friend. He kind of is a little upset because Hans, there's that classic misinterpretation of Hans kind of gets everything good because like he gets the demon amulet, which is an incredibly powerful amulet, and it's like actual batteries. Like amulets have the amount they can store, they have like charges and like how powerful they can be. They're like conduits almost. Of course the demon amulet can store an excess amount of magic, amplify the magic better. And Dancer crafts an amulet for himself, which is like kind of novice tier. Eventually they get robbed and the amulet's destroyed, so he starts out with yet another like novice level amulet. So they kind of have a rough part. And Reza has a cool story where she essentially just goes like a soldier. They like go through fighting, and she like they essentially, I think how it is the Felsmarch, which is the capital, is like northeast, and Hans and Dancer goes south and then west. Like they make a little 90-degree angle. And I think Princess Reza curves like all the way west and then goes down. So they have like two different kind of sections, but eventually meet up in the same area.
That's interesting. It sounds like the first book is kind of like almost a D&D backstory for these two characters.
Absolutely, because they never meet. Never. Well, they meet once actually in a really funny way. But yeah, it's like here's Han's story, his 3 lives, like his 3 different lives he's living. It's this question like, how is he going to deal with this? What is going to become of him?
This guy's like, I don't know if I want to play a druid, rogue, or wizard. And then throughout building the backstory, it was just like, he kind of did all 3, but I went wizard.
Yeah. It's more like a rogue, a ranger, and a wizard. Because like the camps, very much a ranger of like, some are very magically inclined. Like Willow, the matriarch, is an incredible healer. But the camps, you've got the Demon Eye, which are like the warriors, the hunters of wizards. But like the camps, like a lot of times it's jewelry, it's craftsmanship, it's hunting, it's fishing. And then some have the ability to craft amulets and magical things. Yeah, it's such a great book, and it really is a D&D beginning, with like Hans trying to figure out what he wants to do, Princess Reza being in the same position of like being trapped, being like, I hate being a princess who can't do shit. And we start her story coming back from 3 years in the Demon Eye camp, 3 years with the clan. And the second she's back, every single person's like, fuck the clan, like, you've probably just learned nothing, they probably ruined everything we've taught you. And she's like, no, there's a reason why the clan is still existing and why they are just as powerful. Like, I've learned a lot of shit from them, actually. But her mother, and like, she gets trapped again, and she's like, I can't do this. And I love her because she's a smart main character. People build the female main characters to be like, no, she has a moment where she starts selling her betrothal items because she's about to hit naming day. She's about to hit marriage. So everybody in the kingdoms and the whole continent is sending her shit to be like, be my wife, be my wife. She starts funneling that to her father and goes, hey, can you sell this and give it to the poor?
That's awesome.
She's like, can you, literally, I'm going to start sending you shit, sell it all, and give it to a church. And they will start, like, they essentially make the Briar Rose Foundation and, like, start feeding the poor, start giving the clothing poor. Because she doesn't really know it happened until she goes down there and she's like, oh yeah, this is bad. And we are not being told this. The one time they meet is she's there to discuss with the priest and her father the trading deal. And Hans rushes in and is like, they've got 2 raggers! What are we gonna do? Like, Father Blake? And he's like, oh, excuse me. And Amon's there. Long story, Amon was the one that saved him. He's like, aren't you the guy I saved that's the street lord? And Hans is like, fuck. And he grabs Reza and, like, knife point at her. And he's like, leave me. Like, I don't want to go back to jail. Because he doesn't know it's the princess. She goes under disguise as a servant, Rebecca. And he's like, I don't want to kill your girlie, but like, I don't want to go back to jail. And he knows the Demon Eye. He knows her father because he's the head of the Demon Eye camp. And his clan, he's part clan, he's seen the Demon Eye. But he's like, I don't want to kill the girlie, but like, I don't want to go back to jail. So he takes her. They spend like a night together where she's like, she has that moment where she breaks down all of her like prejudice. She's like, you're gonna kill me, you're gonna torture me, and like do other things. And he takes her to a hideout and he's like, just sleep, I'm tired, I've like just been beaten up, like just go to bed. Like, I don't want to leave, I don't want to let you go because it's nighttime and you will most likely get stabbed in these streets if you're just by yourself. Like, sleep, in the morning I'll take you to wherever you need to go, I'll take you back to the church. Like, and then she eventually gets to bed and she's like, he's not that bad, he's cute too. Because Hans is described as like naturally attractive. But that's like the one time they meet, and he lets her go, and she gets to have that phone moment where she gets to try to break the prejudice down with everyone else, where they're like, did he hurt you? And he's like, She's like, no, he didn't really touch me. He let me go. She breaks some people out of prison because he's like, I'm gonna go free my 2 raggers, and she's like, okay, it was nice meeting you, goodbye. And then she goes off to the guard and then breaks them out of prison, and Han's like, why? And even her like love interest Amon, the sergeant, is like, why? And she's like, I don't know, I wanted to. But yeah, I love this book. And the book, to transition it, we spend the entire first book in Fellsmarch. We switch between Fellsmarch and Marzopine's camp, which is one of the clan camps. They don't really say how far. I think it's described as like a day or 2 away from the capital.
Yeah.
But she does the capital. She does it in a very smart way, which is the discussion I'm going to bring up with us is, how do you plan such a large city, and how do you make it digestible for an audience? I think Cindy William Chima does in a very good way, which is focusing on really just 2 districts.
Yep.
I think there's technically like 5, but we really only deal with Southbridge, which is home of the Southies, another gang, and Ragmart, home of the Raggers. Which Ragmart has such a cool thing I will be stealing, which is just a market that sells like nobility clothes that have been ruined, the rags. So there's a thing where Princess Reza has a moment where she ruins a dress, and her wet nurse essentially is like, I'm gonna send this to Ragmark, and she's like, no, my dress. But we have technically West Market, Roast Meat Hill, and the Bottoms, which we almost never talk about. We get mentions of, and he names a couple gangs that are dealing with them, but really it's just Rag Market, which I think is said to be... Southbridge is named Southbridge because it's the like bridge that leads into the palace, because it's really high up on a hill.
Yeah.
And then Ragmark is cross the bridge because there's a river, and it's Ragmark, and then you kind of deal with the rest of the town. But she does it in a really digestible way where we don't really deal much with either of the districts until we start to learn the people. We see Ragmark first, because that's where he lives, and we get to explaining of like, oh, what it is, what it's about. And then as we deeper into the book and we get introduced to the Southies, we start getting introduced to Southbridge. Reza comes in from the Southbridge because that's the nearest to the palace. It's where the church is that she goes to. So we get a bit more about Southbridge, how it's a little bit nicer but a little bit more dangerous at times. They've got the jail there. And I was like, damn, it's really smart. And the author kind of expands a lot more because Marzopine's camp is kind of another smaller city. I think it's explained to have like 50 houses, like camp house, like clan houses. But we kind of switch between those two, which is the discussion, which we'll kind of talk about next episode with you, is the difference between quantity versus quality of do you build the entire capital and discuss everything, giving more information for those people, or do you just really go, hey, that sucks, we're only going to talk about 2 of these, but I'm really going to discuss these in a smart way.
Depth.
My character is really going to only go to these 2 because we don't really have another reason to go somewhere else.
I think it depends on the medium, and it depends on what you think the people will focus on, right?
Yeah.
Because you're building the city because you're wanting people to interact with it, whether that be actual people or characters that you have for like a book or show or something.
Can you pause?
And we're back. Sorry about that. I had to take a small pause there.
Anyways, that's mostly Seven Realms. I love this series. I'm excited to see how she does other bigger cities because we don't really go to too many places. Fellsmarch is the capital of this continent.
For sure.
It's not even that big though. But I think she does it in a very smart way, which is, hey, there's a lot. We're only going to deal with 2 districts, and we're really, like, even in the castle, she doesn't really explain much of the layout of the castle. It's just, okay, I'm going to this wing, or I'm at the thing, hey, can I go back to my room? Mm-hmm. And, like, the most we get is, like, okay, down is, like, servants' quarters, and, like, you can guess. But she doesn't really give you a layout. So you kind of just trust of, like, okay, I'm going towards the, like, royal wing, or I'm going to the, like, cafeteria, like, the dining hall kind of thing. Mm. But I'm excited to see how she does Odenford, because I know Odensford is pretty big, and it's, like, split by a river, and you got, like, wizards on one side, soldiers on the other side, and it's got, like, tavern. I think it's got a tavern, but I remember her describing the layout very nicely over the course of the book. That it's very digestible instead of just, like, thrown in, here's 17 buildings, here's this. Because I've definitely read books like that. Yeah. And I will say, sci-fi loves to do that. Mm-hmm. Here's the 26 districts, here's each name of the district, here's, this and this and that. And you're like, oh, God. I don't remember any of this. Mm. But I do want to move on. Love Fellsmarch. If you've never read Seven Realms, sorry for spoiling it, but I really only spoiled the first book. I don't really remember much of second, third, and fourth, but it is an absolute glorious read. And weirdly enough, TikTok came of it, and I was like, oh no, please don't be bad, because I've never looked up reviews for the book, and like every single person was like, this is the most underrated fantasy book that I've ever seen. Like it's such a beautiful book, but it just is not popular at all. Because at the time, I don't want to say I've grown up with Cindy William Chima, but when I first read Seven Realms series, that was the second series she's ever written. Mm-hmm. Like she had the Warrior Heir series, and then the Seven Realms series, and that was it. And I remember finishing the Seven Realms series because they were still coming out, and being like, I crave more from her. But I know she's released the Shattered Realms, which is like a...
I've heard of Shattered Realms.
I think so. Which is like 20, 30 years after the Seven Realms book. Mm-hmm. And it's... I think how I heard the description is like this cast dealing with old enemies, new magic, and like new friends kind of thing. Like it still takes place in the same world. I need to read it. I have the first book. I never have, though. I'll probably read it when I'm in New York. She is starting a new series. I don't remember the name of it, but it's like Viking-esque.
Hell yeah.
I've got to look this up right now. But it was like unfound friendship in this random person and a like a Viking, and I was like, oh shit. Mm-hmm. Okay, I kind of fuck with that. I think the Runestone Saga, and I think the first book is called Bane of Asgard. I'm pulling it up. Runestone Saga. Children's of Ragnarok is the first book, and then the Banes of Asgard is the second book. A runecaster fleeing from her demon master, that's what was cool, joins forces with a notorious Viking warrior to survive in the human world after Ragnarok.
Damn.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, The Shattered Realms is described as 4 novels set in the world of the Seven Realms, in which a new generation confronts old enemies and unexpected magical challenges against a backdrop of war.
Nice.
And I absolutely love her writing. I need to reread the N.E.R.D.S series, or the N.E.R.D. Chronicles, because I fucked with the 3 books. The first 3. The last 2 I remember hating. Because it's like, oh, you've got the first 3 books are like 3 different casts, or 3 different main characters, but they all come together and like are all friends in a sense. And then the next 2 books are just a completely separate story. Like 100%, whole new location, whole new area, it felt like. Never dealt with the old cast. I was like, I hate this. But yeah, Cindy Williams, if you're listening to this, I love you. You write magic such a cool way. It all makes sense, and it's not like D&D magic, which is just reality breaking. Anyways, moving on, because I'll continue to talk about this.
No, I know. I was wondering, like, should I cut him off?
just love that book series so much. It's a reason my favorite.
I know, it's great. But we are an hour and 24 minutes in, and we have not... We began to talk about it.
I said it was an open discussion. It's not really... I don't really have much points to talk about.
Fair enough.
Because the next point is just going to be, here are 2 examples. How do we feel about it?
Mm-hmm.
Really not much else to talk about. The only other examples I have are Critical Role, Campaign 2 specifically, because that's the only one I really care about. They have 2 big cities. One I think we really get to see and deal with, and the other one I feel like we don't see much. First one is Zadash. It's the first real big city the Mighty Nine get to.
Yeah.
And they explore that city. I mean, I don't know how many... It's like we spent like 20 episodes there.
Well, it's kind of the city they continuously go back to other than N.E.R.D.S.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of becomes their 2 main areas. I mean, you have... Spoiler alerts for Campaign 2, but you have Jester's father there, the gentleman. You have Pumat's soul, which is their magic store. Like, it's really the first city that they went to and made a lot of friends of.
Yeah.
But I think Matt Mercer did a very good job in building Zadash.
And again, it goes back to my earlier point that was written up. You plan kind of around what those characters are going to do, right? So you can make a vibrant, big, open city that has all this lore and stuff that people can do. But if the characters are not interested, if the players are not interested, they're going to go do something else, and then all of that's kind of scrapped.
Yeah.
Or reused later.
Yeah, even in building a book, it's like, specifically with the 7 Realms, like Hans is a thief, he's a gang lord. There's really no reason to buy this, or to build and like write the super wealthy, exorbitant, exotic merchant district, because he's never going to go there.
Because it depends on what the story needs for that kind of stuff. So if you're, you can build a big, great city, but I hope you're going to be using that entire city, because then a lot of it's not going to get touched. Yeah. Or you write multiple books within that city or something like that, So it's...
Because like with Zadash, we know the Mighty Nine needs money. That's kind of their biggest driving force, and they kind of need information. And this is supposed to kind of be the stopping point, like the checkpoint before they get further on, because Ford and Jester are going to the Cerberus assembly up in Rixingtrum. Like that's Rexingtrum. Like this was really supposed to just be like, hey, we're gonna stop here for a little bit, see the city, because most people have never been here before. But it turns to be this like, explore the sewers, get here, introduced to Pumat Soul, the magic vendor. A character that kind of makes them want to come back, and then in a smart way they're met with challenge, which is I want to go to the really wealthy district, the Tri-Spires, and are told no. Like, you're not the class to be here. You're not wealthy enough. We don't know you. Which then makes the party want to go, how do we get there? On top of that, tying story there, which is a super smart thing to do. Like, knowing his friends / party member, not party members, like knowing his group and understanding that, like, at times when they're hit with that challenge, they're going to kind of keep ramming their head there until they get to it. So I think Matt did a very smart thing, which was tying the big kind of arc of that to the wealthy district, being like, I know you want to get here, so let me have something for you guys to be here on purpose, not just because you want to do it and it feels like railroading. The whole murdering or stealing the documents of the one noble lady, and then her death, and then the stealing of the dodecahedron. For sure. It's like, oh my god, and that all takes place in the Tri-Spires.
For me, it's the, like, and I look at it at a very, like, tabletop perspective when it comes to, like, city building, because that's where a lot of, like, where I did a lot of my city building is, like, again, you kind of plan for what, like, you plan scenarios, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is kind of the culture. This is kind of the culture and stuff of the cities are usually like the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And then you plan scenarios that can happen within that you could hook the players in. And then you have a major plot point that ties the city into the main story.
Yeah.
You know?
And the major plot point is such a great device to use when wanting to explore new areas.
Mm-hmm.
Of going, they have no reason to go to the industrialization district or, the shittier parts of the district. However, what happens when the main story takes them there? In a sense, the gentleman kind of being like, start exploring like the underground river and like, you have no reason to go here, but here's a cool plot point that leads the party into a very unique situation.
Mm-hmm. Here's a little off topic, but it is an opinion that I have. There is no side quest in tabletop.
Yeah, I agree.
Side quests are not really a thing. The story continues on what the players want to do, and in whatever you hook them on is now the story.
Yeah.
So a side quest isn't really like a, this is like the side quest from the main plot. It's like, no, this is the plot now.
Unless the players know the main plot and know that what they're doing is not tied to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only time it gets like side questy, which is like, all right, we need to get here, but we're just doing something really not related to it.
Yeah, but in my experience, and I think this just might be my DMing style, I usually try to tie the main plots in some way to the side quests, depending on where you guys go with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like...
That's a great way of doing it.
And because I want it to be, whatever you guys choose is now the story.
Yeah.
And I can make it the story now.
Yeah.
So I have some way for it to tie into the main story no matter what you do, because I want to make sure that your choices matter.
Yeah.
And that to me is a big part of city building, especially, is because a city is not just, it's a living, breathing thing if you think about it. But in terms of like storytelling and also for tabletop reasons, it's literally just a canvas for plot points.
Yeah.
So what you're building is an interesting culture within that city that then has multiple different plot points that can be explored.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, and there's a difference between how they do it in video games as well, because video games, especially in like open-ended video games, have to cater to what will the players be interested. They might be interested in literally everything that we're doing, so we're just going to give them the entirety of the city. And that's when, like, I think city building is like actually complicated.
Yeah.
Is whenever you're doing it to for a video game that can last for however long the players want to play it. And that's where like side quests become more of a thing,
Because, Dragon's Dogma does that with their first city, Vermont. It's the capital. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first got there, I wanted to explore every bit of it. And it, the developers let most of the map be explored. A lot of the buildings were openable. A lot of the buildings had fully furnished insides with people inside and little small pickups of like, oh, here's some dried fruit or here's a chest to open up, So you kind of keep going, okay, well, I want to open up the next building and the next building and exploring.
Well, think about the city of Baldur's Gate within BG3.
Yeah.
Like, completely, like, open-ended, can explore the entirety of the city. There's multiple side quests and stuff to do. You know where the main plot is.
Yeah.
But, like, there's so much for you to do, which will go into my topic for next episode of quantity versus quality.
That's definitely a question of... I personally felt that Baldur's Gate 3's third act in Baldur's Gate was too overwhelming, and I've heard a lot of people say that, and that's a lot of people put down the game or restart the game when we hit Act 3 because it's just too much.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting question of, as a DM, when planning a capital, how do you know when is too much?
You know when, in my experience, you know when it's too much whenever the characters start becoming very disinterested. Whenever you're pushing for something and realizing that everyone else is not enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know, that's when it becomes too much. Because it all depends on enjoyment.
Yeah.
You're making something because you are wanting the audience or whoever is playing to enjoy.
Yeah. And I've also noticed if you really want a party to explore a city, specifically a large city, because there are a lot of small towns and small cities you can do, it's either you do two things. You let the party firsthand know, like, hey guys, I know you guys have arcs, you guys have quests that you personally, your characters want to go on. This is not something that you can rush. Because I know that's sometimes the issue, and I've planned capitals or cities before where it's like, you want to do a lot in here, but you've got one or two players essentially being like, well, my quest needs me to go somewhere else outside of this city, deeper in the world. Can we just move on? And it's like, well, yes, I'm not going to force you to stay here, but in a way, you kind of, the player is being like, well, I don't really care about being here. I want to just move on with the story.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, the story doesn't really continue if you just keep walking away from things, which is what you were saying of, like, the story is what the players want to do, and if players just want to keep skipping between areas, that's a very hard story to tell.
I mean, that's how it was for me with you guys in Campaign 3. A lot of the towns that you guys visited, you guys just kind of moved on from. Yeah. And there were things for you guys to do that I had planned, but I just was like, all right, you don't want to be here, I'm not going to force you to. And it's I have learned, and it's why the capital became so much better than the rest of, like, the other cities and stuff that I planned. Have things within, if you're really wanting to explore as the, like, DM, have them explore whatever town or city they're in more, have something about their quest within that city. Brendan Lee Mulligan put it best in the sense of, like, players are like water. Water will take the easiest path it can to go downstream. Right? So that's why, as the DM, you're basically laying out tracks for that water to go in different directions. Because the player is wanting to get to their objective, but they're going to be real sad if it's just a straight line there. So your job as the GM is to put a bunch of twists and turns by using a bunch of, like, plots and, like, what did you describe it?
Like story elements.
Story devices. Yeah, story devices in as the tracks to make this zigzag. So that still gets to that objective.
Which I think is something I've learned from your campaign which was my second point of either you directly am like, hey guys, the story is not really that forward. It's also just, I think a lot of DMs tend to forget or don't realize that they can just be a character or, like, a person themselves and just be like, hey, I want to explore the city. Can we not rush away from it? Because the zigzag is fun until the players don't realize that's happening, and it feels like the DM is just setting up obstacles for hindrance purposes. Which can be, as a player standpoint, very frustrating to be like, why are we not, like, you keep throwing things in front of us.
And that's where it comes into quantity, and again, we'll kind of talk about that more later. It's a weird balance of making sure you have enough of those twists and turns that feel fun and good, while also having, a good, like, feeling of progression. Going back to what we were talking about with Zadash and Critical Role Campaign 2, they had a mission that they did for the gentleman. Where they went outside of the city to this area that Matt wanted them to explore, and it led to them finding a cloven crystal from this, like, underground section. I highly doubt that's where Matt kind of planned for it to be there, at least in the beginning. But, he needed a way for Ford, because Ford was kind of at that point being the one that's like, well, I gotta go do this. Like, I'd rather go do this.
Because everyone at that point, like, all the other characters either were running away from something and not wanting to deal with their thing, or didn't have anything, like Bo and Molly.
Ford was the only one who actually had a drive to go somewhere.
Yeah. He's like, I want to go to college. It needs to go that direction.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of why everyone started traveling together. It was like, we're gonna get Ford to college. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
So, this was a reason for Ford to stay, was to put that cloven crystal within the not within Zadash itself, but within the area of Zazash. And then have Ford question what is going on with his patron and stuff like that, and whether he still wants to go to college. It was a very, very smart planned thing for Matt to do. Because right after that, they fight a troll. Like, it does not, like, feel exactly like it was the most planned for that to be there, but it was smart for him to include it there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that moment all the time, because it's that... I think it's a little on the nose of like, okay, this feels like it's just for me in a very specific area, which we would have never went to unless we had one specific person. But at certain points, players don't really care of like, this needs to feel like it's fully like randomized and this was just luck of chance. Like, it's that fun part of like knowing like, hey, this is just kind of for you and I've put this area just for your character.
Yeah.
And I've pushed you in this direction because it's your moment.
And it's why I am such an advocate, especially towards our friend who's running our Cyberpunk game, to make sure to cut off and make sure everyone has a moment. Plan for those moments, not just like, oh, like, it's good to be like, hey, what do you want to do? But also have like, okay, as you're doing that, here's something that actually catches your attention too, and this is a moment that now me and you can have and makes you feel like your character is focused on, has a bit of like energy to it, and then also like what doesn't take too much of everyone else's time, so you can go back and forth. And if somebody is interrupting, you can always just have that like, hey, fully understand, we'll get to you in a moment, I still want to focus on this real quick. Which I still feel like they need to work on just a bit.
That's a very hard thing.
It's a very hard thing.
To just be like...
I mean, it took me a while to learn, to be fair.
I love doing it because I love cutting people off. I love being like, hey, guess what? I don't care. We're going to move on.
Yeah.
I want to tell my story, and you're just rambling about something else. Like, we're going to move on from this weird tangent you've put yourself on.
To be fair, allow them for those moments as well, because that's where some character development can happen.
Yeah. There are also just times where it's like, this is going to lead nowhere, or anywhere that I don't think it's going to lead quick enough. 3 hours of you guys doing this might lead to some fun roleplay moment. I've also learned most of our characters tend to spill a lot of their beans quite quickly in the campaign.
It just kind of depends on what the characters are like. Because I know for Ajax, it was more just, I'm not going to say anything unless anyone asks.
Yeah.
Like, and for a while he didn't until it was brought up,
I mean, we play very similar characters, which is just, I'm not going to tell my story unless someone wants to know it. We have another friend, our dear friend that plays Nathaniel, loves to say his whole backstory in like session 2.
Absolutely. We'll just tell you everything.
Even our other friend that plays Keone is kind of like that.
Yeah, but again, it comes with like the person and the characters.
Yeah.
Because I know the person who plays Keone can withhold that kind of information if they want to. It's just, Keone is not the type of character to withhold that. Keone would absolutely be like, hi, this is my,
this is what I'm dealing with. Can you help me, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's why I like, getting back onto topic, planning the city of Crimda, which is a huge capital. It's got 6 districts. Each district kind of has its unique personality, its unique feel. It's got its kind of unique own history. I had that moment while planning before we got to like our first session back of like, okay, what is too much? And I had that moment where I was like, I don't need to plan all 6 districts. I'm going to plan the district you guys get to, which was the Dust. And I know you guys will eventually want to get to the shopping. I mean, in a funny way, that's how all D&D character groups work. You get to a place, you find an inn to sleep in, you find somewhere to spend your money, and then you find somewhere to make that money back up. And that's kind of the progression of, and they can kind of switch at times, but almost always it's let's find an inn to put our shit on, shit down. Either we find a place to make money, or we need to find a place to spend our money, and it's usually the magic store or some other stores, or a place to give contracts. That can be a great introduction to, like we've talked about before, delving into those non-contract based quests. For sure. Like the gentleman being like, hey, I have a quest for you, it's not going to be written on a piece of paper. So I was like, well, I'm only going to plan 2 districts, maybe a little bit of the 3rd district, which you guys eventually did get to, the Stonehammer. I was like, I don't need to plan other ones. Like Critical Role, I have, 2 of my districts are kind of locked off right now from you guys. Yep. I don't really have to worry about that right now until a little bit later.
Which we're working on to get in there.
Yeah.
Because I need my soul fixed.
Yeah, but it's not going to be an immediate thing.
I know.
Which I'm excited about.
I'm just planning to get it done. I know it's going to take a while.
That's the thing, is I know you guys want to get there, which can be the fun part of we have A to B, or A to Z technically, and what can I do to be no, you guys don't just immediately get to go there. What's something that can lead to something else? And that is actually the, at part C is where the part I start introducing a little bit of the main arc, and then we get further down, and you guys eventually get there. It's holy shit.
So a really cool way that I've seen structured for plot points, and I know it's very tabletop right now. We're supposed to be talking about cities, but this is
it's like I said,
it's relevant.
It's planning based cities and how. I mean, this is the rant I wanted to have: is how do you plan a city?
Yeah, point A to point B, right?
Yeah.
And there's a line that you need to go through, right?
Yeah.
Instead of having that line, just be a single line to point A to point B, have 2 curved lines that allow a lot of open space. Yeah. But we'll always get back to point B.
Yeah.
And then B to C.
B to C, yeah. Because I have that kind of right now where it's my 2 curved lines are exploration and kind of quest-based things. So I have 2 lines. You guys can either explore your way into the arc, which would be difficult, but is possible. And if you guys just want to start walking around and exploring things, that would lead you guys to the main story. Or you do certain quests that kind of introduce things to get you to B, and then from B I get to have that moment of okay, what do I want to plan in the city now? What do I think is necessary to plan? Because at a certain point, I don't think you guys are going to be getting to the rich district anytime soon for any really other reason other than the bathhouse. So I don't really have a need to sit and spend 20 hours.
I mean, bathhouse, and I just want to find a person that can talk to me about the runes of my sword.
Yeah, but that's a different district. That's the Maga Kamara. That's the school.
Which is, I thought, where we were trying to go.
Well, so the Maga Kamara, which is the arcane district essentially, is the gate to the rich district. The bathhouse is in the rich district. So you guys have to cut across the arcane district and the rich district.
Okay.
But you're also need to get into the arcane district for your sword. So it's that's the fun. You guys know where you're going. It's locked off right now. What is it going to take to get there? And what parts of the city do I want to explore with you guys?
Which I find is really funny that the entire point that we're going to the rich district is just because... God, we stink. We need a bath.
Yeah. Which didn't ask the tavern keeper, hey, can you draw me up a bath?
I thought about it.
Yeah.
But then Nathandra was like, I really want to go to this bathhouse. And, and Ajax is like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to try to go to this bathhouse.
It's looking up a private owned business and being like, God, I want to go there. And it's no. It's,
for sure.
It's only for certain people. But anyways... it's planning something this big, whether it is for TTRPG or for planning, writing itself, is very difficult.
It is.
And it's, what point is it where I need to stop and understand, okay, the party or the readers are never going to get here, because my main character is never going to get here. So what do I do?
You follow the arc. For books, it's a little harder because you're more trying to figure out. So books works more in that like structure that I was talking about, where it's A to B and then the two curved lines. But instead of like two, it's like one curved line.
Yeah.
Where it's like know where you are and then know where you want to go and then kind of fill in from there.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing is like have things loosely planned.
Yeah.
You know, if you're building a city for a TTRPG, have your point A and your point B that you want for them to go, and then have things loosely planned for things that you think could get them there.
Yeah.
And then, and then just like in between those loose things that you want to get there, have some things that could also just be interesting just for them to see. Like the hammer, I think, was a very interesting point for our characters to be like, oh, the city is so cool. It has this big floating hammer that's probably absolutely keeping this city up in the sky.
Yeah.
You know?
It's such a... Because that's how we planned the first session, was like, my session notes were like recap and the like introduction of you guys entering the city. Otherwise, everything else was not session planning, but like just world planning of like I have documents that show either the districts, what's in the districts, and then I have a separate document that shows like shops, guilds, members of those, but only for a certain number of them because I'm not planning every fucking thing.
Yeah. So then that comes to that point for, again, TTRPGs. Whenever your players have like hooked onto something, then think about how that hook can get them to point B.
Yeah. Which I'm excited to, because we ended last session with you guys getting to the point where you can see what you'll hook onto. I have a lot of things that are dangling little hooks, and we'll see what you guys lash onto.
And you know what? Maybe in that bathhouse is an important NPC that we meet
naked, just bathing.
For sure, but it could be an important NPC there that like might give us like a small tidbit of information, but also just could be a like, oh, I saw you at the bathhouse.
Yeah.
You know, like you need, we come out of the bathhouse and we go back to the like arcane guild, whatever, and I'm like, I need to figure out the runes of the sword. And it's like, well, you need to talk to this person here. It's like, I saw you at the bathhouse.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, no, I like doing those things, and we'll see if you guys hook on to any of the contracts. I have a feeling this might be more of a campaign 2 thing, which is I introduce the contracts, you guys do like 1 or 2 and go, the city, and then start doing quest-based things instead of taking contracts and that is your story. You more go the gentleman route, like quest-based arcs, where it's like, okay, do we really just want to do arcs for the government, or do we find an interesting individual or two and do those types of quests? Both could be fun. We'll see how the party wishes to go.
I think I've said all my points.
Yeah.
For it. It's a cool topic.
It's a very fun topic.
Yeah.
I'm nervous because I've put a lot of capitals in this world. I've put a lot of big places in this world.
For sure.
So I'm like, can I do this 6 more times?
Again, my advice for anyone who's like building like just cities, like I'm still having to make a map for Gendry right now.
Yeah.
So like cities have to be kind of located on there, or at least like points of interest. So my advice is, if you're thinking of like cultures and stuff for those cities, think of it as like a world of hat trope, where a culture is like a world of hat. Basically, is like every world has a hat, and it's like that hat is what explains the world, or something. So, like, say you come to this world and it's a bunch of bug people, and that's what the hat is. They're angry bug people.
Yeah.
It's not it's mostly known for that. Then you can kind of have that be your loose space for the city, and then you can have then when your players or stuff are there, you can flesh out the details later.
Yeah. Because playing in Crimda, I mean, my hat was like, this is a world ran by 13 Dragon Kings, all incredibly different and all incredibly magical, that they're each land is very tied to who the Dragon King is. So building Crimda, I'm like, this is the kingdom of the Iron Dragon, you know, founder of essentially the magic material in this world, Thrawn. Like, what is this capital going to look like? Well, I want it to be mostly dwarves, and then that's transitioned into mostly small folk, so dwarves, gnomes, halflings. But then I don't even remember where it came out of, but I had the fun idea of like having it essentially over a ravine, and then that, you know, transitioned forward and forward. So my advice with capital planning or just big city planning is just bullet pointing.
Yes.
Like, there's no... You should almost never start anything with just straight writing.
No.
Unless you're trying to jog ideas down. Like, for me, it was, okay, Crimda, and then I was like, I want it to be over a ravine, you know, a floating city. I want it to have mostly small folk. And then that transitions into, like, okay, well, what does the culture look like? You know, what's a cool map that kind of signifies different levels of... You know, I have this capital built on craftsmanship and making their own stuff. So it was kind of just bullet point after bullet point. And to a certain point, I was like, okay.
Well, bullet points lead to ideas.
Yeah.
So it's a great way of doing that.
Because I was like, oh, that's how I made the stone hammer. I was like, the Iron Dragon, the Iron King, had the name Stonehammer. And I was like, well, I need a district name for this main center district where the royal palace is, where the center of the Dragon Guard is. And I was like, well, what if I just named it after him?
Yeah.
Or like he would name it after himself. And I was like, that bullet point led into, what if there was an actual stone hammer in here? And I got to the certain point where I was like, okay, there's enough bullet points. Now I just actually start writing in details about those bullet points.
For sure. And even for like small civilizations, because Rust Lake was very similar. I had bullet points of, I know I wanted the small town to be called Rust Lake, so it had to be by a lake. It's called Rust Lake for a reason. Well, it's probably called Rust Lake because there's something there that signifies rust.
Yeah.
Probably the lake itself because it has this like weird color, and that's probably because of this, and blah, 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 blah. You know, having like just these small ideas can bounce off, and just write down the small ideas.
Yeah.
And then you can bounce it off.
Because then once you hit a certain point, you can go, okay, I have this district pretty laid out. I have this part of the capital pretty laid out. And now I'm wanting to explore it. What's some fun things I can do? You know, for D&D, it's the easy, what's some cool taverns I can build? What's a cool magic shop? What's a cool randomized shop? And then, you know, what I do personally with TTRPG is then I go, what are some encounters that are this area specific? Like, you know, if you guys are in the slums of the district, the shittiest part of the district, yeah, you guys are probably going to witness someone getting mugged. Like, that's I don't want to say that's a common thing. It's a common thing. But then how do you take that and go, okay, what would a mugging incident look like in the Arcane district? Like, what is their version of that? Is it someone, you know, holding someone else at wand point, being like, I'm going to incinerate you, blah, blah, blah. Like, then that's kind of the fun part is I kind of know some things. How can I make it slightly similar, but also flavor different for my other locations?
Yeah.
But
all right.
I mean, that's all I have for this.
That's all I have for it as well. Pretty good ideas.
I love building capitals in big cities. I love the culture.
I do too.
And it's nice when it fits well. Because I've built one or two places where I'm like, ooh, I don't think that fit well. I don't think that worked.
No, that'll happen.
Yeah.
I've absolutely had some places like that. But yeah, just have fun. Be creative.
Oh, I forgot to mention this point. Naming convention. I think the biggest thing for me that I learned when building large areas, even small areas, is that you've got two separations of naming conventions. When it comes to people with money and wealth, they tend to name things very exotic and weirdly. It's either named after people or it's named after just random things. You think of London kind of just being like Briggerton Alley, like just almost nothing. Or like Lancashire, like it's named after a person kind of thing. So that can be fun, and it's a great way of showcasing easily different districts of like if you guys enter a district and it's like, you know, we'll talk about mine, the Métier district.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of are like, okay, this feels fancy. This feels like it's more than just slums. And then people that are poor or lower class will name things based off the environment, which is a great way to, if you're stuck at it, like, I don't know what to do for this location, think about the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Rust Lake. If you hadn't had the name before and you built a lake that was rusty, that's the moment where you can go, well, what am I going to name this? You know, like, what's the environment? It's a lake. It kind of looks like rust. Either it's called Red Lake, Rust Lake. So yeah, that is how I really built Crimda. Was I had the city and I was like, okay, I know I want to have like 2 or 3 kind of lower end areas. How am I going to name them? Well, what could be a fun environment storytelling that shows the area that the name makes sense? And I built the Dust, a district that is caked in dust, and next to it we have Blue Wall because its walls are blue and it's due to manufacturing. Like, that's a great way if you're building cities or anywhere. If it's rich, think of fun, exotic, weird, fake names. And if it's poor, low income, you know, like farmer based kind of things, those things will tend to be like, oh, we live in Riverside because we're next to a river. Or like, you know, we live in Mountainshire because it's a mountain and we build homes here, kind of thing. Like, that's a great way of naming convention, and that can lead to fun, like, aha moments. Here's a cool, you know, concept for this world.
For sure. And a thing that last thing I'll say on that with naming conventions as well, think about time. Because the original name for a place sometimes will dwindle out for something new. Yeah. And I've talked about this before, and it was actually because Matt Mercer kind of brought this up when he was talking about like how to make locations. Is like sometimes a small town was made next to a waterfall, and was like literally called like, you know, Waterfall Landing. Yeah. You know, and then over time, you know, based on just like people like moving and accents and stuff like that, Waterfall Landing became Winterfall, you know,
Landing.
Winterfall Lunding, you know, or like kind of combines, like if it's like.
So you talked to me about this and actually used it in Crimda, because I was like, that's such a cool mechanism. So I have a small subdistrict that was named Brick Home because it was made out of bricks, and after the centuries, it became Brick Home. Yeah. Because you talked, I think, about that last week to me when I was dealing with like, I don't know what to do with naming conventions, and you were like, here's this cool concept, and I was like, I've got to put at least one in here. And I was like, it's a place that's used bricks to make things. Brick Home turns into Brick Home. Oh my god, it's so cool. So that's a great
way of doing it.
And I used it. I listen to you sometimes.
Great. I'm glad you do. Like Windhelm, for example, was probably like Wind's Helmet or something like that. Yeah. And it just kind of turned into Windhelm or something like that. You know, it's a fun way of doing it, and think about like time and conventions of how that would just that would work.
Especially a civilization that lasts a long time.
Oh yeah.
Because then you can do the opposite of civilizations that are destroyed quickly. How does the naming convention rapidly change when new people come and try to settle things? I luckily have been fortunate to plan in an environment where the Dragon Kings are eternal, essentially, so nothing ever changes, except for slight changes like naming conventions a little bit. But like Crimda's been Crimda for 700 years.
For sure.
So, anyways, that's all I have.
That's all I have.
We will see each other in the next episode.
Yep.
Bye-bye.